We've asked you, when we're talking about the defensive line, we've asked you a lot about Keanu and Henningson, but we haven't asked you much about Mullins. I'm just curious, what have you seen from him this year from the beginning, first game, to where he is today in terms of production and what you guys asked him to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of growth from Isaiah this year, just always physical, right? He's a big, strong kid, and through experience, I think he's really gaining a lot of confidence. He is being that physical guy, but seen the last couple weeks, getting some sacks, a little bit more production, and credit to him. I think he put in a great offseason, and now once again, as I mentioned, with experience, you just see him continuing to grow week in and week out. I think he's confident in who he is. He knows the type of player he is, and he's putting that out there every single week.
Jim, several of Nick Herbeck's teammates have talked about the intensity that he plays with. One, I wanted to ask you, what areas of development have you seen from him this year to take that next step? And also, are there some examples you've seen behind the scenes of the intensity that he provides?
Yeah, I think, first off, as you mentioned, the growth, I think just in every way. I mean, he is truly a student of the game. He's up in those offices as much as anybody. A lot of detail goes into that position. We ask our outside backers to do a ton, and it was really a credit to him last year to play the amount of snaps and have the impact that he had as a true freshman, especially with COVID and kind of the time, not having spring ball and stuff like that. It was really impressive to see what he did. And this year, it's just he's playing with so much more confidence and speed and physicality because he knows everything. He understands all the adjustments. He's a guy that, with his passion, sometimes would like to go out of structure at times last year and just try to make a play. And now he knows when. Right? He understands when he can be a little bit more aggressive, when he can take a chance, and he's made some big plays for us that way, on top of just growing as a pass rusher and consistently creating pressure for us off the edge. And intensity-wise, yeah, he's a guy who he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's easy to see if he's having an off day where you can hit him and really create energy, and that's rare. Because he's a guy who brings energy, passion to the game of football. That's the only way he knows how to play. So he's constantly yelling, constantly talking, hitting guys from other groups, and just continuing to bring the energy and kind of that passion that we like to play with here on defense. And it's fun to see our guys feed off of it.
Just wondering, y'all's run defenses traditionally are really, really good, but the numbers this year are better than ever, better than any team's had for a while. Just what do you think has been the difference this particular season? Why the run defense is that much better than even before?
We're always trying to take the scheme to the next level, right? We're always trying to eliminate conflict, which is what all these offenses are trying to do, run past conflict and leverage issues. And, we're always trying to do little things that way. And when you add on top of some of the little adjustments that we've made, the experience and the physicality that we're playing with, it's kind of a recipe for success. And, our guys make so many things work. You just look across the board, and it's been very consistent that when we've had an issue, when we've had a problem, somebody's made it right. Whether it's Leo beating a block or Jack, somebody up front, pretty consistently this season where issues could have arose in a game or on a play, you see somebody making it right. And that's a credit to them. Nothing's perfect. Ask our guys to play with aggression. We ask them to play a disruptive style of ball, and when you do that, you can fix some mistakes. And there's going to be times we're going to give up plays. We've been on a streak, right? We've been on a pretty hot streak, and you add the sacks. That obviously helps change things. You're getting sacks and negating some of those rushing yards at times, which we haven't always had. TFLs, I think we've found some things within this defense to create a little bit more TFLs than maybe we were a couple years ago, and I think it's all kind of adding up to some pretty consistent play.
Jim, in an era where it's easier than ever to transfer, does that make it more challenging as a coach to keep players happy enough to where they stick around and contribute in a program like this one that's very much a developmental program?
Yeah, it's a new kind of world of college football, and I think everyone understands that. Everyone's trying to figure it out. for us, as you mentioned, being a developmental program, it's a lot of conversations, I think, with kids and being really honest and telling them where they are, where they stand, how they need to get better. And if you're consistent with the messaging, I think whether they like it or not, they respect it, and hopefully they understand where you're coming from and why they have the role that they have currently. Some teams are having bigger issues than others, right? Because I think there's different ways of recruiting kids to get them in the door. And I think we try to be consistent, and that doesn't mean you can keep everybody happy. You want guys that are motivated to play. You want players that are motivated to have a big role. And sometimes when that doesn't happen for a kid, especially early, they get frustrated. And hopefully that's where the consistency of the messaging, right? That's where understanding really the motivation that drives them and what they're all about. Hopefully that can continue these guys to push through some of that stuff, but you're not going to win them all. And it's frustrating when you see kids leave, because in a way you feel like you've failed them, right? You haven't been able to deliver on your side. Just maybe it goes both ways, right? Maybe they haven't, maybe you haven't. Every case is a little bit unique, but you're just trying to continue to push and get your guys to trust you and trust in the process that whatever it takes for them to be great. It's going to be different for every single guy.
Jim, you've probably been asked this both as a player and as a coach. There are times when defenses struggle to force turnovers. You guys talked about it earlier this year, but the last 2 games, it's been a strength. Do you have any explanation for why it changes, one stretch, and then you start forcing turnovers, even though you've talked about it all year?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the stars just align. When you play aggressive football, when you're doing the right things and making teams one-dimensional, you're going to go through some runs where you create a lot of turnovers. And we've played some teams that Purdue was going to be aggressive passing the ball. They're going to get the ball out on time. I thought we did a good job of affecting the timing of the quarterback, whether it was pressures early. Some max coverage things that we did in that game to get into some windows, maybe get him to hold the ball a little bit longer. You don't overthink it sometimes. You want your guys to play a certain style of football. You have to take advantage of the opportunities. That's the biggest thing. We had multiple chances early in the season to create some big turnovers, and we missed. And one turns into 3 really quick at times. And that's the biggest thing we've pushed with our guys, is being opportunistic, really learning within a game plan and kind of how an offense attacks. Like, where are those big chances for you, right? Sometimes you can miss a tackle or miss a run fit and it goes for 5 yards. You miss an interception, it's momentum, right? Both ways, it's yards, it's first downs, it's confidence. So just trying to get your guys to be dialed into the big play opportunities that they create and, run to the football and be physical, and that's going to force some fumbles, and we've done a great job there recently as well.
Jim, you mentioned the intensity of Nick Herbeck, and we've heard some stories about him pregame, just how he kind of psychs himself up. Does he remind you of anybody that you played with, either in college or the pros, the way that just he amps himself up before a game?
You put me on the spot. I'd say a lot of guys really that I played with, just when I got to Baltimore, it's one of those where you're a young player and it's always, you can't play on emotion forever. Like, everything's going to settle down. It's going to turn into football. Well, that was a group of guys that could, right? That was a group of guys that kind of redlined it every game, right, from the beginning till the end. The kid's been around football his entire life. He knows only one way to play this game, and that's to empty the tank, right? Every play, kind of every drive, every day. So there's a number of guys, without going into names, like, to me it was more certain teams I was on. Like, Von Miller is a guy, like, he'd literally crawl off the field and to go take a blow, get some oxygen, sit down for a series, and then he'd go out there the next drive and do the same. Like, a number of players that just had that mentality of, like, just don't save anything. There's no point. And I love that about him, right? And when you get some of your best players kind of playing that way, everyone seems to fall in line and follow their leadership, whether it's vocal or just how they play. But it's fun to watch. right? He's going to continue to grow as a player. He's still so young, but he's having a big impact every week on us, whether the stats say that or not.
Jim, with Hunter Woerner, I know that he got in the game later, with the game in hand, but he's also made a mark on special teams in terms of being on units. You started with special teams when you were earlier in your career. Just how does that help, a player develop, being on special teams, getting those game reps that could translate later down the road, being on one side of the ball?
Yeah, I think very impressed with what Hunter's done. I think the last 3 or 4 weeks have seen him take a huge jump, right, in his progression on defense. Even though he hasn't got many snaps in games, you're seeing the consistency and the confidence continue to grow. We put a lot of adjustments on these guys, and I think it takes them a little while early in the season to just feel comfortable and understand how much really carries over, right, even though we're tweaking things here and there. Seeing him play with a lot of confidence right now, and it was fun to get lots of young guys in that end of that game, and for them to seal that drive off without points was big for them. And obviously he had a bunch of production around the ball a lot. The special teams aspect to it, I mean, it's a lot of one-on-ones. It's learning the speed of the game. It's understanding the little details in most situations are the difference, whether it's the drop you take on kickoff return, right, or the vision that you have on kickoff, kind of seeing things unfold as you're running full speed. Once guys learn that, they just usually continue to trust their ability, trust their eyes, and go play fast. And like I said, I think he's had a really, really good last month of football. Even though he hasn't played a ton of snaps on defense, you're seeing the comfort level kind of continue to grow with him, which is what you hope out of young players.
We have time for 2 more, Jeff.
We talked to Matt Henningson last week after he was named a finalist for that Scholar Athlete Award, and he broke down kind of his academic schedule and what he's working on, and you can tell it's heavy lifting. Can you appreciate the work he has to put in off the field, but also when he's here, how he has to balance things to do everything at a high level?
Yeah, it's so difficult. I mean, as adults, you realize how hard it is to really create balance in your life when you're dedicated to multiple things. And for an athlete, it's no different, right? To play at a high level and really commit yourself to the preparation it takes to consistently play at a high level on top of the academic schedule that these guys have. And like him, I mean, you're in engineering. It's not like he's taking a fluff major and just smart enough to get by. Like, he's 100% all in that as well, and he has huge goals for what he wants to do after football. So it's really impressive to me when you see guys who can compartmentalize, right, turn it on, turn it off, not get burnt out throughout the course of a year. It really takes a special person to be able to consistently get that done, and obviously he's done that from day one since he stepped on campus. So just a credit to him, and very well-earned recognition, and hopefully he can finish it off with a big win.
You were talking about transfers before. I don't know if you consider Collin Wilder an old-school transfer, but he's been here for a couple of years now. What have you seen in terms of growth from Collin since he arrived from Houston?
Yeah, I think Collin was, he was a guy that was recruited pretty heavily here, chose to stay home, and got to a point in his career where he felt like he wanted a fresh start and trusted the program and kind of the history of the walk-ons and himself. He really rolled the dice and took a chance on himself because he was injured at the time. And I would say that the thing that I've seen with him is just his approach. He was quiet when he got here, and you could tell he took that mentality of, like, I just have to prove myself, right? I don't need to say anything. I need to work. I need to get back on the field because he played early in his college career. So just dedicated himself to that rehab process and put in a lot of time that offseason, even though he knew he wasn't going to play, and really learn the defense. As he's grown, he's earned so much respect from our guys just with how he works and how much he cares about everybody. And now he's become so much more vocal and really consistent as far as the leadership that he provides, really both sides of the ball. And it really comes from his mindset and his commitment to the team and to the guys. So a lot of fun when you see guys really grow up and said you saw a shift. Like, I know I need to prove myself. I don't need to say anything. It doesn't need to be vocal. I don't need to talk about who I am, how I got here. Just let me work and earn it that way. And he did that pretty early in his career.